Welcome to the third unit of week one. In the first unit, we have discussed about basic concepts of assessment. In the second unit, we have discussed about different purposes of assessment. In this unit, we will be discussing about different approaches of assessment. What will this unit enable us to do? Probably we'll be able to describe different approaches of assessment and also differentiate between these approaches of assessment. There are three approaches of assessment of learning, for learning, and as learning. We'll be able to describe it all and also we'll be able to differentiate between them. Similar to our discussion on purposes of assessment, an understanding of different purposes of assessment help us follow a balanced approach. Also, we are able to do a very good job of designing, administering, and using each of those assessments with the understanding of different purposes. Similarly, an understanding of different approaches of assessment will also help us take a very balanced approach. And these three approaches of assessment we are going to discuss in a classroom setup. It will help us take a balanced approach and also see that how well we are doing each of these assessments and therefore how well we can support students' learning. So, all of these approaches of assessment will be discussed under the purview of the first purpose of assessment, which is assessment to support teaching and learning. Let me begin by showing an image. What do you think is happening here? Take a minute's time and see what this image is depicting. You are seeing certain shapes, and then there is a barrier, there is a filter. Certain shapes are coming out of that filter. Again, something is happening, and then only one circular shape is out of the system. So, this particular image is depicting that how individual students are unique. Their interest, their strengths, their weaknesses, all of it, they are all unique. And therefore, one kind of pedagogy, and now we understand that assessments are also integrated in the pedagogy, the formative kind of assessment. If we use a similar kind of formative assessment and similar kind of pedagogical approach for students who are unique in nature, who have different strengths and weaknesses, probably the result will be that there will be a very few students who will be able to understand that what is going in the class and also able to clear those assessments. What will happen that there will be lots of misconceptions, learning gaps that will flow with different students because we have not addressed it in the right time. And then we have something called as assessment that happen for, say, certification, the end term assessment. So the last assessment that is shown here, that is basically depicting semester end examination, something which is summative in nature. And probably now students, since they are not supported, they are not being supported during the teaching learning process through formative assessment, probably there are lots of misconceptions and gaps, and therefore probably a very few students will come out of the system. Very few students will be able to do a very good job in these assessments, right? So the entire setup is basically discussed to establish the need for assessments that are done to support teaching and learning. The assessments that are conducted to help students learn better. The assessments that are conducted to help students identify their misconceptions, their strengths, their weaknesses. So, if we are able to do a very good job of designing such assessments, probably we will help all the children to learn better. Again, let us go back to the flowchart that we used in the unit 1. when we said that we begin with the course outcomes, we devise pedagogy and assessment as per outcome-based education principles, that they are all in alignment to each other. While the pedagogy is happening, we keep conducting assessments which are more formative in nature. It can be assessment of learning, for learning, assessment as learning, and something that happens at the end is assessment of learning. Now, in such a setup, what are we trying to do? How is assessment helping me? Probably the course outcomes are depicting that where do my students need to be. So, course outcome tells me that what my students will be able to know or do at the end of the course. Then comes assessment, which is telling me that how far students have attained the course outcomes. Where are they now? So, assessment helps me answer that question. The next question is, if I understand that students are at this level, then what am I going to do to move them forward? So that is more of a pedagogical question, right? What kind of instructions do I design? So all of these happens in a cycle. It is an iterative process because we understand the importance of feedback now. And every time we are constantly checking if the students have attained the desired course outcomes or not. The assessments are designed in that manner. The pedagogy is also designed in that manner. And in these three important aspects of a course, outcomes, the pedagogy and assessment, the student is at the center. So whatever we are doing, be it pedagogy, be it assessment, or the way a course outcomes are defined, it is all for the student. Because you would have seen that for course outcomes also, it tells us what a student will be able to know or do, right? So everything is happening for our student, right? Student should be able to create or construct the knowledge. Probably faculty members or the instructors are just facilitating the construction of this knowledge, okay, through good quality assessment. So assessment plays a very, very powerful role that in that manner. So how about seeing the assessments not as doors but as windows? So what does that mean? When we see assessment as doors, probably we are treating the assessments or we are talking about assessment which are more summative in nature, where we are trying to evaluate, where we are trying to make a judgment about students' learning. However, when we see assessment as windows, probably this is giving us an opportunity to observe student learning, and we are not merely gatekeeping their learning. We are not merely saying that this is what student has attained. Instead, we are constantly observing students' learning. We are constantly seeing that where our student needs some support, some help, some scaffolds. How can I provide that scaffolding better? So the entire purpose of such assessments, or when we are seeing assessment as windows, is to understand what the student is doing and how they are doing it. So we are getting multiple opportunities through our assessments. Since these are all informal, we are constantly assessing our students. It can be through observation. We can also do assessments while we are observing our students in the class, or we can also question them. Questioning is also one very powerful way of conducting formative assessment, or we are doing small quizzes. All of these can be considered as small windows, right? And if you see windows, through windows, you can, air can pass, light can pass. But if we have doors, if we are talking about doors, it is closed. We are not getting that opportunity to look, to see, to observe. Where are the students now, and what am I going to do to help them learn better? So their focus is on gaining insight and also fostering their understanding rather than determining whether they have passed or they have failed. So this is how probably we should see the role of assessment in the teaching learning cycle. So all our approaches of assessment that we are going to discuss in today's unit is focused on this particular role of assessment. So, Lorna Earle has proposed three approaches of assessment: assessment of learning, for learning, and as learning. From our Unit 1 discussion, we know that when we are saying assessment of learning, we are basically talking about summative assessment. While when we are talking about assessment for learning, which is conducted by the teacher, or assessment as learning, which is conducted by the student, we are basically talking about formative assessment. So, you can also bucket them into types of assessment, right? So, these are the three approaches of assessment. So, in our subsequent discussion, we will try to have a discussion on each of these through some examples and also through some case studies. So, this particular flow chart is depicting that whatever we are doing in the class, how is it connected to the broader outcomes of a program? Now, we know that, say you are a faculty member of a graduate program, you are part of the teaching community of a graduate program. So, any graduate program, we know that there are different program outcomes. So, probably at the end of a graduate program, students should be able to attain those program outcomes. So, program outcomes are very broad. They are related to the ability to communicate, to work in teams, to collaborate. So they are very, very broad and they are very abstract because they are defined at a program level. Then we have program specific outcomes. So each and every stream, say if we are talking about engineering programs, if you can have computer science engineering, we can have IT, we can have mechanical engineering. So, every program will also have some specific outcomes based on the nature of the program. Now, definitely these program specific outcomes are more specific as compared to the broader, the more abstract program outcomes, and therefore they are called as specific because they are defined in the context of the program. And all the programs in different years, they offer different courses. So, course 1, course 2, course N is depicting these courses. And every course is defined by a certain set of course outcomes. Okay. Course outcomes defines the scope of discussion for every course. And for every course outcome, related to every course outcome, to see how far students have attained these course outcomes, we conduct continuous internal evaluation and we also conduct semester end examination, right? So, we can have several continuous internal evaluation. We can have smaller test, 5 marks, 10 marks, and then at the end, probably we can have a 80-mark semester end examination. Now, how is assessment of learning coming into picture? Now, let us see one example that say the program outcome, as these are very broad and very abstract. Say the program outcome is understand and solve problems of relevance of society to meet the specific needs using the knowledge, skills, attitudes acquired from humanities, sciences, mathematics, and social sciences. Say this is the program outcome and this is focused on problem solving, right? And this is one of the fundamental and core competency that we would like all our graduates to achieve. Okay. Now, suppose let us take one example of let us take one course, a course. Say the program specific outcome I am not discussing here, but say the program is computer science engineering, and we are talking about C programming. That is, say, one course in this program. And one of the course outcome of this program is solves real life problems using C programming. Say this is the course outcome. Okay. Now, when I am talking about assessment of learning in a classroom setup, how will assessment of learning look like? Now, probably we would have designed several assessments or several question papers. For many of you have done it, right? Many of you have designed several question papers to assess the attainment, that how well students are able to write programs to solve real life problems. Let us see some examples, okay, and that will probably establish the need for the nature of assessment of learning. How should we design assessment of learning? Now, on your screen, you are seeing some examples. Okay. Now, these examples are very conventional examples, often used for in many test papers to to assess the attainment of the course outcome that we have just discussed. That if a child is able to write programs, okay, and what will those programs help? This program will help in solving real life problems. Now, it can be the define algorithm, or what is a flow chart, what is a pseudocode, explain the design structures in pseudocode. There can be many questions like this on the course outcome that we have just discussed. So, most of it is, as far as question number 1 to question number 5 is concerned, most of it is belongs to the cognitive levels of remember or understand. And if we come to the question 6 and 7, student is actually writing some algorithm, okay, but most of it is very traditional in nature. Probably student must have practiced each of these several number of times. So we actually do not know if the child has actually attained the skill of programming, because it might happen that child has remembered the code and reproducing it in the exam. So we are not sure, because these are traditional, students have already practiced it. However, if we have such assessments, if we have this kind of a question, okay, say once upon a time, 3 friends, Abhiraj, Parth and Vigyan, go for a weekend outing. They decide upfront that they will split the expenses equally. Abhiraj buys the movie ticket online, which is worth 990 rupees. Parth pays the bus tickets, which is worth rupees 140, and also purchases popcorns in the interval of rupees 150. Vigyan pays for the meal after the movie, and this is worth rupees 1100. Now, if for such a context or for such a problem, child is expected to write a C program to work out and the due amount on each friend, right? Because all of them have paid different amounts, and it is important to basically balance the amount, and therefore probably Vigyan will pay to someone or Parth will pay to Abhiraj. This kind of a system need to happen. Okay, so how do I know that how much Abhiraj is required to pay to Parth or Vigyan, or how do I know how much Vigyan is supposed to pay to Parth and Abhiraj? So this is a very typical problem that each of us face in our daily life. Okay, how about asking students to write programs for such a scenario, for such a setup? Okay, is it more aligned to the desired outcome? Because the desired outcome is ability of students to write C programs to solve real life problems, right? So if I am now asking students to write C program for such a setup, probably I'm able to do a better job of assessment, or probably my assessments, as per the principles of outcome-based education, my assessments are more aligned to the course outcomes. Okay, so it is always observed that probably we do a very hasty job in doing or designing a question paper of assessment of learning. But now, if we understand that what is the purpose of this kind of assessment, okay, probably we are focusing on the assessment of desired competencies, and not merely on their ability to define algorithm or write flowcharts. Okay. Coming to some of the characteristics of assessment of learning, it is backward looking, because we are looking backwards and seeing how far students have attained, right? It is conducted at the end of the unit, or at the end of a course, or at the end of a program. So it is backward looking, right? It is non-remedial in nature, because it is not happening during the teaching learning process. It is happening at the end. And it happens in a periodic manner, which means It can happen at the end of a unit or a course. So periodically we conduct these assessments. Of course, these assessments are conducted by instructors, by faculty members, and this leads to a quantitative measurement. It can be marks, it can be grades. Moving ahead to the second approach of assessment, which is assessment for learning. Black and William has done extensive work in the domain of formative assessment, and they define formative assessment in the manner that practice in the classroom is formative to the extent that evidence about student achievement is elicited, interpreted, and used by teachers, learner, or their peers to make decisions about the next steps in their instructions that are likely to be better or better founded than the decision that would have taken in the absence of the evidence that was elicited. Now, here there is a very important word, a very important term that is being used, which is evidence. Okay, so the entire objective of conducting assessment for learning is to gather such evidences, and such evidences will help us understand where are the gaps, where are the learning gaps, and such evidences are interpreted and used not only by the teachers but by all the stakeholders who are inside the classroom, the peers, the students themselves. Okay, and what do we do after we elicit the evidences or we try to interpret them? We try to take some decisions about the next steps, right? We are actually using the assessment results, okay, to provide feedback to the students, or we are also actually seeing that how far my pedagogy is working, right? So it's a cyclic process. So we are trying to design some formative assessment or assessment for learning in alignment to the learning course outcomes. Students are also aware about those course outcomes. We are gathering these evidences and then we are interpreting and then we are actually using the assessment results. What is the implication? The last part of the definition actually says that if we take the decisions based on such evidences, probably the instructions or whatever we are doing in the classroom that are more likely to be better, right? Because now our actions are based on very strong evidences. Now, since it is happening while the teaching learning is going on, it is forward looking, right? Assessment for learning is forward looking because now we are not just reporting, it is not backward looking. Instead, it is guiding the future direction. So, it is definitely forward looking. And since it is forward looking, it is remedial in nature. It is also happening continuously. It is integrated with the teaching learning process. And who is conducting the assessment? Not only the instructor, but also students themselves. If you recall the example that we have taken in the first unit, where students were, peers were giving feedback based on the rubric, right? Students themselves are doing the assessment. And based on these assessment, we are not doing any quantitative measurement. Instead, we are giving qualitative feedback or we are taking qualitative feedback, okay? Feedback for the students and feedback for the teachers. The third approach of assessment is assessment as learning. Okay, now in this case, since we have discussed in the first unit that students themselves are conducting the assessment, okay, and the entire process is very reflective in nature. Students are doing some self-assessment. Probably teacher can facilitate such assessments through some checklist, through some rubrics. That kind of facilitation is possible. But students are doing the assessment based on these checklists and rubrics. And then they are reflecting on their learning and then they are drawing some cues for improvement because now they are more aware about their strengths and weaknesses. For example, we can take a few examples from here. Some questions can be there that suppose there is a group work that is given to the student, and then we are giving these questions to the student as checklist. Uh, these questions will help them reflect. For example, how well did you work with your classmates during group work? What did you do to help your team? Because sometimes in a group work, we all think that probably we all are contributing, but we do not know what is the meaning of contributing. So, how about helping students understand the meaning of contribution through some guided questions? And one of the important program outcome of graduate program is collaborating. How do I know if I am collaborating well or not? So these questions can help students understand the meaning of collaboration. Did you share your ideas and listen to what others said in your group? Because doing, speaking is equally important as listening is. Sometimes we miss the opportunity to listen to others, right? So am I aware that I am doing it? Am I actually spending a lot of time in listening to others and then actually stating my points? Similarly, did you have any problems working with others? How did you help solve them? See, each of these questions will help students understand the meaning of collaboration, because collaboration in itself is a very abstract term. And how about helping our students understand this abstract term through some guided questions? Okay. Now, through these questions, I'm not grading them, right? I'm not giving any feedback to the students. Instead, students are taking feedback themselves. And such an approach actually provides a safe space to the students, right? Students are not being judged. Students are not given feedback by anyone who is external to them. Another example, if you see on your screen. So again, if we take the context of a group work, and mostly in higher education, we give lots of projects where students are working in groups. Now, in such a group work, we how do we know? So, if suppose there is a group of 5 or a group of 7, how do I know that which role I should be devoted on, or which role I am more appropriate on? So, how about giving them some metrics that see if every individual is unique and every individual is important and can play an important role in a group work. How about understanding our strengths and weaknesses and then contribute appropriately? For example, probably I'm a person who is very action oriented. Let's do it. And this person also likes to act, try things, and also plunge in. Similarly, another set of students can be they are more speculating in nature. They like to see the big picture, and they are also looking for some possibilities before acting, unlike the action oriented person who are in the north side. Similarly, there can be another category of students who are caring. They like to know that everyone's feeling they have taken into consideration, and they actually consider that all the voices are equally heard in a group. Similarly, another category can be a set of students who pay a lot of attention to details. They like to know the who, what, when, where, and why before acting. So now each of these skills, each of these dispositions are very important to work in a group, right? If all of us are action oriented, probably we will not be able to contribute or work well. We need people of different qualities, of different competencies. Okay. Now, if this kind of a compass is given to the students by the teacher, and then teacher is out of the scene, students themselves are discussing this compass and then trying to decide that which student has which particular quality. This actually shows that all qualities are equally important and all qualities should be given equal value. So, to summarize these assessment as learning, these are also forward looking, exactly like assessment for learning. Okay, these are also remedial in nature, because the keyword, the feedback, students are actually gaining some feedback to work and contribute better. These are also continuous in nature. This is not happening at the end like assessment of learning. This is happening continuously during the teaching learning process. However, the only difference of assessment as learning and assessment for learning is these assessments are conducted by students. The aspect of metacognition, being more aware about my own thinking, my own cognition becomes important. Such assessments engages learners in monitoring, reflecting, and also assessing their own learning. So students are the most important stakeholders for this kind of assessment. So since we have discussed all the three approaches of assessment, again let us try to summarize their characteristics through this table. So we have discussed that assessment of learning is used for summative purpose, for grading purpose. The reference is course outcomes. So these are criterion referenced. And who is doing the assessment? The instructors are doing the assessments. Similarly, assessment for learning, these are formative in nature. The purpose is to inform the pedagogy, or this can be also diagnostic in nature. Also, these assessments are also referenced, criterion referenced. These are also referred to course outcomes because whatever we do, whatever informal assessments we are doing, these are all aligned to the desired course outcomes. However, the key assessor here is not only instructors, but also peers and students. All of them are doing assessments. The third approach of assessment that we have discussed is assessment as learning. The purpose here is also formative in nature. However, the purpose is more to monitor the self-monitoring, okay, and also self-reflection, self-correction. All these aspects become very important in self-assessment. Assessment as learning are also called as self-assessment. In this case, the reference can also be course outcomes and also our personal goals. It might happen that I am comparing my own performance with my previous achievement. So these are also ipsative assessment. And the key assessor here is students, not the instructor. Instructor can only facilitate the self-assessment but not do. Students are doing assessment themselves. So in this unit, we have discussed three approaches of assessment. And these approaches of assessment are applicable for the broader purpose of assessment that we have discussed in the last unit, which is on supporting teaching and learning. So when we are talking about the purpose of supporting teaching and learning, it can be either assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. In our next unit, we will take a few case studies and try to see these characteristics in action.